I've been asked by Trent that if we do talk tonight, speak in the mic loudly, please, so Bruce can hear. Is that,
Yes.
do you have anything else? Okay, Jeff, please.
Thanks, Board. I'd like to take a few minutes and walk you through perhaps a confluence of two things. A series of critical needs that our district is experiencing, as well as some resources that have just recently been redirected to us that will help us meet those needs. Let's start with the most pressing needs that we're experiencing in our school district. Number one is probably the long-term flexible learners and the responsibility that teachers have to provide digital instruction to them. So just by way of review, we have several options that were made available for families to begin the year. One of those, of course, was in-person instruction. And we have approximately 91% of our students who have elected to come to school and learn in person. That's a higher percentage than what we were anticipating back in June and July when we began to receive the survey results that we'd sent out to parents and families. At that time, we were seeing 29% who were indicating strong interest in digital instruction, long-term flexible learning. So that's decreased. So one option that families have is in-person instruction. The next is short-term flexible learners. That's what we call it, short-term flexible learners. And these are students who, for a period of days, maybe up to 2 weeks, might be out of class. They're sick, they're isolating, they're quarantining, and we call those our short-term flexible learners. The next category is our long-term flexible learners. And these are students who are essentially opting for at least a quarter to learn digitally. So you've got a teacher trying to manage all three of those groups. There's a fourth category, and it's our remote learners that have moved into Weaver Online. And that's going to come into play here in a few minutes as I walk through, this confluence of things that have come together in just really the last week. As we work closely with teachers, there's no question that the thing that's putting the greatest pressure on our teachers is the long-term flexible learners. They've been able to keep pace with their in-person instruction. The short-term flexible learners are really in sync in terms of their pace of study, what they're learning. They're in sync with the in-person instruction or in-person learning because they just missed a few days, less than 2 weeks. But as the quarter moves on, these long-term flexible learners are self-paced. And so you can see that they're either accelerating or falling back and trying to keep up with those learners has been a great challenge. I'd say a second real pressure point in our district has been with contact tracing. We identified to begin the year our nurses as our point of contact with the health department, meaning that if there was a need for contact tracing, that would fall to the nurses. Now, Davis School District received a large amount of funds from the Davis Health Department, and they directed $700,000 from the Health Department to hire some contact tracers. I don't understand exactly why, but Weaver Morgan Health Department did not receive CARES money. And I don't know the answer to that. But that's where that fund source came from Davis District. They got $700,000 from the Davis County Health Department to hire contact tracers, and that's taken that pressure off of their nurses. But that pressure has certainly been on our nurses. So those two things in particular have been weighing heavily on us, knowing that those are two very real pressure points within our organization. So with that in mind, last Thursday, I was invited to a meeting with Commissioner Gage Frower and County Treasurer John Bond. And when I arrived, Commissioner Jim Harvey joined us also. And Weaver County received some CARES funding. And as we discussed, they had a proposal or two of maybe them directing some money toward Weaver School District and Weaver District taking on a project or two. A lot of that involved the expansion of broadband service into some areas of the county that currently don't have it. And I listened for probably 30 minutes to the presentation, very well thought out. And as that concluded, I expressed that I felt like it was a worthy project, a good project, but I said I need to also be honest and tell you that we've got critical needs in our school district. And I'd come prepared with not only how we had spent our original allocation of CARES funding, but what additional needs we still had. The commissioners were incredibly responsive, and they were willing to set aside their project temporarily and direct $750,000 immediately to us. The county is receiving, they were scheduled to receive up to $24 million of CARES funding, and that money will flow from the state, the governor's office, to the county, and it was going to flow in 3 installments of $8 million each. And they received the first 2 installments. So the $750,000 that was redirected, and that was a gracious thing to do. We're so appreciative of our commissioners. That $750,000 that was redirected to Weaver School District immediately came from those first 2 installments. The third installment has not yet been released from the governor's office, and they're not right now able to get, specific feedback from the governor's office in terms of when it will be. But they've also indicated that if and when that $8 million is released, that they would redirect, a substantial amount to Weaver School District. Not all of it. There's plenty of needs throughout the county, but it would be another substantial amount. And with that, I think we could even take on the broadband expansion project. I've spoken with some other policymakers. Representative Waldrop had, some interest in that and so forth. So this took place last Thursday. Since then, we've had a series of discussions internally to say how could we utilize those funds to begin to ease the pressure points especially the two that I indicated. The first one was relatively easy, and that was that working with Lori and Carla Porter and Claudia Struper, our head nurse, Larry Hadley, we've opened 15 positions for contact tracers. And those would be contact tracers over the next probably 7 months. And those positions have been posted. And we're getting some interest in that. Having those contact tracers, and of course they need to be trained, but that will take remarkable pressure off of our nurses and allow them to do what they've been hired to do. Because quite frankly, most of them have been mainly involved in contact tracing these first 6 or 7 weeks of school. The next discussion was we could hire, to start with, 7 elementary teachers and 1 per grade, K through 6. And then working closely with some of our curriculum specialists, Dr. Jennifer Boyer-Thurgood, Sherry Hyder, Christy Wagner, Maggie Huddleston. They would really work closely with these 7 new hires that have expertise not only in elementary education, but in Canvas as well, and would be able to pull all of our elementary flexible long-term learners out from the regular classroom teacher and bring them in under that umbrella, if you will. And we feel like that's very doable. Then the discussion was, what are we going to do with our secondary teachers, and how can we relieve stress there? And eventually the discussion sort of centered on our Weber Online program, which has been developed over a period of 8 or 9 years. And the infrastructure is in place that while it would need some expansion, we could bring our secondary long-term flexible learners into Weber Online. So we're starting to see Weber Online as really a key in resolving a lot of our concerns. But we also know that using our current organizational structure, we don't have the capacity to support or sustain that particular model. It's unusual to recommend to the board a relatively substantial reorganization in the middle of the year. But I think failure to do that would be irresponsible, because not responding to the needs that we're having, I think will result in the loss of teachers. I think we'll lose teachers. So what I'm proposing tonight is that we open a position for principal of Weber Online as a K-12 school. We know that there's going to be substantial work needed to really develop the curriculum K-6. A lot of that curriculum, because Weber Online has been running for a period of years, is in place for secondary. There will need to be some enhancement and capacity building to bring on these additional long-term flexible learners. But the infrastructure, if you will, is in place at the secondary level, just needing some expanded support. The elementary, not so much. And hiring these 7 teachers will be very key in helping us. By the way, I think that's going to be a one-time. The model will evolve as we work our way through the COVID crisis. I'll tell you another benefit of it. Right now, we'll have occasionally a family that wants to put their child, K-6, into a distant learning, a remote learning, an online learning for the year. And we haven't had that capacity, quite frankly. So what we've done is contract with a third-party provider. And so we register them as a Weaver School District student, but the WPU is essentially a pass-through to that third-party provider. I think over the coming months, we're going to be able to develop our K-6 model to be robust enough, comprehensive enough that, we won't have to do that going forward. And that'll be a real positive, to be able to know that it's our curriculum and it's our teachers that are working with those elementary students who are choosing to learn remotely, for the entire year. The other request that I'm going to come to the board with is become quite obvious that the role of digital teaching and learning needs a greater emphasis in our school district. Right now we have our tech department and our curriculum department that are both, working kind of together as well as they can to manage some of the responsibilities associated with digital teaching and learning. For example, even with the model that I'm proposing, that we expand the Weaver Online, have its own principal, and have it as a K-12 model, we still have 1,800 teachers that will be working with Canvas and digital instruction with, their curriculum, with their short-term learners. This will always be an issue. This is never going to go away. And I'd like to recommend to the board that we open a position for director of digital teaching and learning. Someone that can really help place the needed emphasis in that area and provide, the focused leadership in that area that we need to move forward as a school district. Now, I don't see these as, completely new individuals necessarily coming into the organization. Therefore, requiring hundreds of thousands of dollars to open these 2 positions. I see them as reorganizational changes. We're going to open these 2 positions. We'd like to open these 2 positions and interview, but I see these ultimately as reorganization within the existing structure, within the organizational structure. This will be a great thing to move us forward. Tomorrow morning, I've scheduled a 9 a.m. Zoom meeting with all of our administrators to walk them through what's happened in just the past week and let them know that beginning second quarter, the plan would be that teachers K through 12, just hold special education to the side for a minute, teachers K through 12 would not be working with their long-term flexible learners. And that will be a tremendous relief of pressure on them. Again, with our special education, we're looking at a different model to support those. I want you to think, for example, of a special education child who has an individualized education plan, an IEP, with some very specific goals for that student. Moving them into this, Weaver Online model would not allow them to follow that IEP and meet the specified goals that are outlined in their IEP. So we're working with Quinn Carlindsey, and he's got a pretty good model, in place to help. To give you an idea, the numbers that we're talking about, I think K-6, we're talking about 150 children that we need to find a way to help provide additional support, and we're going to do that. Questions? The other thing I'll mention is following the Zoom meeting in the morning, we've got a letter that Cammie, Alexander, and Gina Butters have prepared that will go out to all teachers so that they know that help's on the way. And I want to just take a moment and pay tribute to our extraordinary teachers. What they have done this quarter, the work that they have put in, the dedication that they have shown is staggering. It's humbling. It's extraordinary. They have just been champions. They have put in many long hours of their own time. I recognize that. We've all recognized that. And, I think it really comes down to how grateful we are for the county commissioners to, redirect some significant dollars our way that has enabled us to, put together a plan to relieve some of that pressure. And the other tribute is to our nurses. Our nurses often don't get the recognition, the acknowledgement that they deserve, but what they have done in these past probably 7 weeks is, again, just mind-boggling. The work that they have put in, they are burning the candles at both ends is an understatement for our nurses and our teachers. And I just can't express enough our gratitude, our appreciation, our respect, our admiration for these great groups, and it's a wonderful thing that we're going to be able to come to them with some needed support. One final thing, you know that we're on a modified schedule, 45-minute reduction in the school day. And when we proposed this model back in July, the plan was that we would assess this quarter by quarter. And board, it's my recommendation that we extend the 45 minutes through the end of second quarter, which is about mid-January, and we'll reassess once again at that point. But that 45 minutes is much needed and has been utilized extremely well. So I'd recommend that we, that doesn't take a motion or anything like that, but I'll recommend that we extend that 45-minute schedule modification through the end of second quarter as well. Janice?
I have two questions. One is, could you clarify a little bit how the different funding went to Davis as opposed to Weber Morgan? We went through our commissioners and received similar funding, but it went directly to their health department, or there was some...
It's a great question, Janice. I know that Davis County also received CARES money, but in addition to Davis County receiving CARES money, my understanding is that the Davis Health Department received CARES money. And I don't know the answer to why Weber Morgan Health Department did receive CARES money.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
That's.
So there, in Davis, there, you've got Davis District that received, as did we. Davis County received funding, as did Weber County, but there was that third with the Davis Health Department. And, the thing I wanted to just, and I wasn't aware of that, quite frankly, until about 2 weeks ago. But I wanted, especially our nurses, to understand that there was a different revenue source for those contact tracers to be hired in Davis County, and we didn't have that resource. But it's come through the county now for us, and again, our appreciation of the commissioners is so great.
Thank you. The other question I had was, I understand that you said the position for the principal, K through 6 Weber Online, would be that, and the other position would be a matter of shifting.
I think both in the end will be reorganizational structures, but the Weber Online principal will be K-12. Now, just to give you an idea, it's very likely that Weber Online school will open with approximately 3,000 students. So the model that we have right now, Weber Online has always been managed by Hal Raymond on the side. He's done a great job, and we need to pay tribute not only to Hal, but some of those pioneering teachers who developed that coursework, that curriculum. But that's always been managed on the side. Hal's the principal of Weber Innovation. So, Janice, the point is that our current organizational structure would not sustain or support the proposal that we're making to the board, because we're planning a school that will open with probably 3,000 students. They need their own principal.
And then the hiring of the 7 teachers, the positions will be opened, and they will be looking for tech-able people to fill these, and
Yes.
it won't be shifted within the district, it'll be open.
Correct. But we see that as one-time money. That's going to be one-time money. That's a great question. That's carved out of the $750,000. And we will open those positions for all teachers. And certainly we're looking for teachers that have that strong technology background, but also a curriculum background, particularly as we look at the elementary, where we're needing to really develop the curriculum of Weber Online to make it a more robust, comprehensive curriculum that can be used down the road to handle those remote learners that are choosing to learn remotely for the entire year.
And you don't see that as a short-term, those are short-term positions, those are extended, those are ongoing.
Well, the money for those 7 will come out of the $750,000 that we receive from the county. In the future,
Yeah.
what I see, Janice and board members, is that we will staff that school in a similar way that we staff other schools. So when you've got FTE, that are assigned to a school based on the number of students enrolling, then that's how you get funding. So I see down the road that staffing ratios will determine FTE at that Weber Online school. So in other words, we wouldn't need that additional money. It would come out of existing staffing ratios, because if they're in Weber Online, they're not somewhere else, right? So that WPU, if you would flow to Weber Online.
Dr. Stevens, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Just along that same line. Not for this year, but in the future, what would the savings of the K-12 contract be approximately? Do you have
Well,
any sense of that?
Again, it's a great question. It's essentially a pass-through of the WPU. WPU, Robert's around $3,600 right now.
Yeah.
So what we're paying the third-party provider is essentially a pass-through of the WPU.
But in the,
So
but in the future, it
we'd
would
retain it.
we would retain it.
Absolutely.
So do we know about how much we're passing through currently?
I'd have to get with Dave Hells.
I'm
know
just
the
curious.
number. I don't know the number right offhand, Jan, of how
I think
many.
it's less than 10.
Okay, I was just wondering what kind of savings that
Yeah.
would be for us.
Jeff, I know.
Less than 10 students or less than 10,000?
Less than 10 students.
Oh, but,
About 10 to 12 students.
but that might be $30,000.
Yeah, or more.
Okay.
Yeah,
It'll grow, it would grow.
because, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Bruce?
Jeff, I know time's short, but I just wanted to ask a quick question.
Yes.
Where will we house this new principal and staff? Is that going to be housed at the district office?
The seven, as I've worked with the curriculum department, they want those teachers close by. And so we're looking at some cubicles. They don't need a whole classroom or anything like that. But our curriculum department, Sherry, Jennifer, Christy, Maggie, want good access to them because a lot of that support is going to come from them. So we see downstairs, Bruce, we've got some training labs, training rooms that we could easily put together, some cubicle areas for them. The principal, we need to look exactly at the best option for that.
Thank you, appreciate that, Jeff.
And with, like when you brought on Orchard Springs and Silver Ridge,
When we brought on Orchard Springs and Silver Ridge, we had to do because the principals are out of a different funding, do we have to go through that for this principal?
I don't see that with this, Paul. I think that there's going to be, in the end, I think there's going to be some organizational restructure. They're probably going to be, I don't know if it's going to be level. There might be, some increases in salary to, through a promotion. But it wouldn't be, I don't anticipate it being, going from 0 to that full salary. It's going to be going from this level to this level. I see in both cases a reorganization of the existing structure. So no, as far as some of the ongoing expenses that you have at a brick and mortar school, those won't exist with Weber Online. So no heat and lights, no custodian.
Those would be just absorbed.
Well, we don't have those expenses. With a lot of those things that you have with a brick and mortar school.
Right.
Just
So where they're housed.
Yeah, so again, the funding is gonna come really from WPU. Now, the staffing ratios will look a little different than they look in a brick and mortar school, because quite frankly, when you're working with a classroom of digital learners, you can manage more students than in a regular classroom. So we'll build those staffing ratios to reflect that.
If I could, board, as we had this discussion, Doug, I'm sorry. The same question was asked is, can you fund this, and if so, can you maintain that? And I just left it at that, because the question's going to be asked, that same thing, is the funding in place? And he thought that through very well, explained to me the same thing during the discussion over the past week. So
It's the jump start of the $750,000,
Yes.
quite frankly, that
There it is.
enables
To do
a
what
lot
we
of
need to do.
this. And I'm viewing that as one-time expense, one-time money, not building another $750,000 into our budget.
No, no. At the same time, it's gonna come at a better time with the teachers and the issues and the stress. I know we're tight on time, we got 5 minutes left, we got people want to get in. Doug, please.
Looking at their organizational chart, we're going from 7 to 8 directors and from 4 to 5 supervisors, right? Just, that's the organizational change.
Yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I think, what's reflected on that chart are 2 new positions, but it's very possible that then 1 or 2 other positions might be eliminated. I see it more as a reorganization. We're gonna open it up and interview, but it's very possible that it could be a reorganization of the existing structure. So, I don't think when you see the final, that there are gonna be that many on there. It's gonna be the same number overall that we had prior, but, different positions, different positions for a couple of individuals.
Will these students still be tied to one of our existing 4 high schools, or will it be a separate
Well,
autonomy, separate graduation, separate
great question.
geographically, how will that?
Yeah, remember it's a K-12, so one of the things that we tried to do to begin the year with our long-term flexible learners is keep those students connected with their neighborhood school, classroom, and a teacher. But quite frankly, it's a model that just hasn't been sustainable. And so, they'll be pulled out. The long-term flexible learners will be pulled out of their neighborhood school, but they will have a teacher and they will have a principal.
Board, anybody else? Bruce? Jeff?
No, I think that answered all my questions. I appreciate that. It sounds like a great idea. I think it's gonna produce great dividends.
Thank you. I have to agree and empower Jeff and his administration to organize it and move forward and do what they need to help the kids with the money that we were so thankful we have. So with that, I'm going to give you 3 minutes and we'll go back to board meeting. So